Hey, I'm Shannon, and if you found this channel, there's probably a pretty good chance you already know what an infusion day feels like. The getting ready, the setup, the mental calculations you have to run before you even start. How will I feel tomorrow? Can I push through the rest of the week if today is hard? It's worth it. It's always worth it. But it costs something, and not enough people talk about that cost. That's why I built this. Welcome to the Infusion Life. I'm your Infusion Bestie, Shannon, and this channel is for every single person who organizes their life around a treatment schedule and has ever felt like the rest of the world just doesn't quite get it. Let me tell you who this is for. It's for the person who just got their diagnosis and has no idea what an infusion even involves. It's for the person who's been doing this for years and still feels alone in it. It's for the person who does infusions and is seeking more community. It's for the caregiver or someone who loves someone in treatment and is trying to understand what their person is actually going through. And honestly, it's also for the clinicians and researchers and patient advocates who want to understand what this life actually sounds and feels like from the inside, not from a symptom list, not from a chart, just from a gal sitting on her couch with a needle in her leg or her stomach or her arms. That's me, by the way. Home subcutaneous infusions, sub-Q for short, commonly known, on the couch every week. I want to tell you a little bit about my origin story, how I got here, and because I think context really matters. I was chronically ill and really quite sick for more than 20 years. I noticed I started becoming more reliant on antibiotics. Up to the time of my diagnosis, I was taking them several times per year. I would get better for a little bit and maybe a couple weeks, maybe several weeks if I was lucky, and then I'd lapse right back into an infection. Eventually, my primary care doctor, who I saw on a fairly regular basis, I went to, and I was feeling pretty desperate and broken. And I said, something's wrong and I can't continue to live feeling this poorly. I look around and I see other people who take antibiotics and bounce back and get well, and they stay well. And this is not the case for me. I had a conscious realization and began to put the data points together. It hasn't been the case for me for years now. This isn't typical, and it's taking a great toll on my mental and my physical health, having chronic inflammation and joint pain and body pain and sinus headaches and sinus postnasal drip, unrelenting brain fog, fatigue. I said I get proper exercise, good nutrition, good sleep. I don't abuse my body. Something's wrong. Her response, you're right, Shannon. This isn't typical, and we're going to figure it out. So she sent me to an immunologist. How I got my diagnosis. It was a soft roll-up. He started with allergy testing, and it was determined I was allergic to black mold. Like, who's not allergic to black mold, right? Aren't we all? Anyway, it took some weeks to get the next steps going, which was insurance clearance to get a pneumococcal vaccine, which is a pneumonia inoculation. And the instruction is that once I got the inoculation, I should go back in about 5 weeks' time to get my blood drawn. Then another couple months had to trail by in order for me to get in to see my immunologist again. He's a wildly popular guy. I went in open, but not necessarily hopeful. I had adjusted to living like this, being sick, pushing through, just adapting to maybe the reality of this is how my life was going to be. I arrived and walked in and sat down in his office, and he announced that he had figured out what was going on, that it had a name, that it's an actual thing. I had a diagnosis, what? Functional B-cell deficiency, which is a primary autoimmune disorder. He kind of straightened himself up. It's structural and genetic. My first emotion was disbelief. I had lived so long coping with illness and had become so accustomed to coping through days and nights, which had turned into more than 2 decades. And really, I had resigned myself to the notion that this was my life. I had so many questions, and yet I was stunned at the same time. So he explained to me, in an effort to simplify the process, what was actually going on. And he drew my condition in buckets, 7 buckets, so I could understand what was going on. He said, imagine this is your immune system. And when you get a vaccination, your body recognizes an invader. And in my case, bacteria maybe. And the antibodies attack it and go to dismantle it. Now, typical people are going to have a really robust immune response. All 7 buckets will be overflowing with antibodies to be able to stave off infection. However, in my case, only 2 of my buckets were filled and the rest were empty. He explained my body does not produce enough B cells, and this means the type of antibodies that fight off bacterial infections. So think bronchitis, pneumonia, staph, sepsis, and there's a bunch more type of bacterial infections, but those are the respiratory ones, and that's more or less my lane. There wasn't a cure per se, but there was a therapy. It was called immunoglobulin, commonly referred to as IG. I asked him what immunoglobulin was made of, and he said, human plasma. Whoa, wow, that alone is a topic for a different episode. So we'll be back. I'm not exactly sure when the infusion stopped feeling like a medical event or just part of my life, honestly. Sometimes it still feels odd. And I've been infusing for 6 years now. But perhaps a couple of years or so into it, I feel like I hit a groove. And I could say the same for my family as well. Familiarity breeds a certain level of feeling comfortable. And the weekly repetition of pulling out the medicine from the fridge in the mornings and then come evening time, assembling my kit to get ready to infuse became second nature over time. I don't think that there was one particular moment that made me feel like, oh, I could do this. Rather, I'm the kind of person that needs practice before I feel confident. Maybe this is just a human inclination, right? I was visited by a nurse several times to train me on how to assemble my kit. All the stuff gets sent to me once a month. I put my immune globulin in the refrigerator and pull it out in the morning, knowing that I'll use it that evening. She taught me how to pull the IG, how to clean myself, how to assemble my tubing and my kit. After roughly a month, I had moved from being new patient to being ready to have the training wheels come off. Was I nervous? Yeah. Was I afraid I'd do something wrong, like thread the wrong tubing? Of course. Was I afraid I'd shoot out all the immune globulin, the golden medicine that kept me well? You bet I was. After a while, we calibrated the frequency and my dose, roughly a year, because I was still having breakthrough infections. And we were able to get me to a kind of even constitution where I have really good health most of the time. There's this thing that happens when you stop fighting your treatment and you start partnering with it. That's what I want to talk about a lot on this channel. Here's what the Infusion Life is going to be. Real conversations about IV, IG, SCIG, immunodeficiency, autoimmune disease, as well as a myriad of other conditions who also fall under the infusion umbrella. Gastrointestinal, like I said, autoimmune, metabolic, genetic, neurological, and blood disorders. And what we all have in common, what infusion therapy actually looks like from the inside. How to prepare, how to advocate for yourself, how to build a life around treatment without losing yourself in it. I'm also going to be talking to other patients because my story is just one story, and the world is full of different and unique stories. Some of my friends do their infusions at infusion centers, IV, the whole setup. I have one friend, and a nurse comes to her house to administer IV. She takes her infusions for 2 straight days. Their experience is different from mine in a lot of ways, and both are real. And I want to make space for all of it. I want to be really clear about one thing though. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving medical advice. Always go to your care team for any kind of medical advice. What I am is a patient who's lived this, who's asked every question, who's made every mistake, and who figured out slowly how to make this life work for her life. I'm here to translate, to tell you what it's really like, and to help you feel less alone in it. If any part of this has resonated with you, if you even feel a little bit like, oh, she gets it, then you're in the right place. Subscribe, leave a comment, tell me where you are in your journey. Tell me what you wish someone had told you when you started. This community is just getting started, and I'm really, truly glad that you're here. I'm Shannon. This is the Infusion Life. Let's do this.